the breakthrough of pivoting. Pivoting is a stage in the art of contemplation. It is the turning point in our inner journey when we transform or transmute some deep, unseen, unknown shadow view, some wounded part of ourselves, some twisted view, we transmute it, we change it into something higher, into something positive, into something creative and something beautiful. So it's we talk about pivotal moments. And what we're doing through the art of contemplation is by creating pauses, more pauses in our life, by making more space, inner space. We're making room for pivotal moments, for this mysterious process of turning, this inner turning. We pivot around a wound, around a discomfort. The pearl in the oyster is almost a pivot around this ache, this itch, this germ, this thing, this problem, this grain of sand that the oyster can't get rid of. And so it builds this thing of beauty around it. It pivots around it. And that's what we're really doing through the art of contemplation. And if you're using the gene keys, then you have a really good language, because the experience of pivoting is the very kind of knife edge of the shadow transmuting into the gift and releasing the aroma of the essence of the siddhi, where you have these three words in the spectrum of consciousness that is the foundation of the gene keys. So you have the shadow. Let's take one at random, the 15th gene key. The shadow is dullness, the gift is magnetism, and the siddhi, the essence, is fluorescence. So for someone who is just experiencing that dullness, the dullness of perhaps their own inner being, I don't mean necessarily even the dullness of a day, but it's like the inner being feels dull, it feels lackluster, it feels uninspired, unmotivated, adrift, those kind of feelings. And to create space around those kind of feelings, instead of to distract yourself away from them, is actually what can create the pivot. So you create that space. And then that dullness, whatever it is, you see something in there reveals itself. Something shifts. This is actually very much something that takes place inside our body. So this is really a process, an embodied process. You create the space, and then the thing inside your body, the discomfort, the kind of ache, begins to reveal something, and there's a shift that takes place, an energy shift. And what it does is it releases the kinetic energy from the potential. The potential energy becomes kinetic. In other words, it releases life force, which is why in this case it becomes magnetism. It releases this magnetism, this life force, this vitality. The mood shifts, the inner world shifts, the whole way in which you look at life, the way you look at yourself, the way you look at the world begins to shift, and you feel more positive, you feel happier, you feel lighter. And that's how it works, pivoting. And then even the fluorescence means that then lives on in the world, because a pivoting experience is a permanent experience, it's a permanent shift. This isn't just a kind of a moment that you have. This is actually a big shift, a cellular shift, and it goes on. You know, it goes on happening. So once you've done it once, it can easily happen again. And it gives you faith to know, wow, I'm just going to go on creating more space and have more pauses because the breakthroughs are so amazing. Yeah, so, you know, in my life I've had many of those pivotal experiences. Many of them take place in my relationships, I find, you know, in relationships with my children, with my wife, with my father. I remember one with my father, a sweet experience when I was younger, and I had a real difficulty in my early 20s with my father because I couldn't get him to kind of listen to me. You know, it's like I had all these openings and expansion. I was like full of all this, you know, my spiritual journey and everything, and I wanted him to know and understand it, and he wasn't really very interested. He didn't speak that language. It didn't mean, he couldn't relate to it, right? So, and I remember once just walking around the garden with him. I went for a walk with him around his garden. He was a gardener, still alive actually, but he's now very old. Doesn't walk so much. And he would walk around his garden and look at the borders, and he's one of these gardeners that just knew the Latin term of everything, you know. And he walked around with me, and he would just Latin terms coming out, and this is like this multiflora, you know, and I'd be like, wow, he really like loves this, you know. And so we walked around the garden, and he spoke Latin to me for like half an hour, and I started to really deeply relax and just enjoy his presence and enjoy his joy. And I had a pivot. I had a complete emotional breakthrough. Like my heart opened. I let go completely of wanting him to understand me in a certain way. And I just took him for what he was. And I realized that was him understanding me. I allowed him into my heart. I allowed that Latin, you know, because it's just language, but underneath the language was joy, was connection, was intimacy, you know, and I just felt that flow, and he felt it too, you know, because I said, well, what's that one? Oh wow, and I know that word from my Latin studies. Like, oh, I know, you know, I understand why it's called that because of the shape, and we connected, you know, and ever since that afternoon, my relationship with my father has been so much easier because I took all the pressure off him to be a certain way, and I just let him be the way he wanted to be. And through that came our connection. But often what we do is we put that pressure on people to listen in a certain way, to speak our language, you know, when they, you know, they don't want to, they're not ready to. They want, you know, so we just let them have their language, and we realize that the heart is the true language, and it's underneath, you know. So yeah, there's a pivotal moment as an example from my life. I hope it's inspiring to you, and I hope you can take this teaching of the art of contemplation out into your life, and through creating those pauses, begin to watch the magic of those pivots. The pivots are rarer, you know. And you really remember them when they happen. You really remember them. Make wonderful stories like the one I just told you. And I really recommend when one happens that you share it. Share it in this community. Share it with your friends. Share it, you know, share it, because these are like moments that are precious, and they can give others breakthroughs, you know, because they're to be shared. You know, one person's pivot can be many people's. Yeah, so very simple, and because it's out of our hands, we don't really know how to create a pivot, but we can create a pause, and then something occurs in us through creating those pauses. Yeah, magical thing. Blessings as you go out there and into your lives, and may you experience many pivotal moments.